our time schedule today. So, here's what well, first take a look at the minutes and if there's a motion to adopt.
So
we'll entertain
moved.
that.
Second?
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, minutes are adopted. Second thing, Mr. Crowe, I'd like to follow your lead in projects. Here's what I'd like to do. We've got one item of old business on here, which is a continuation of the library. Where's Jennifer? Is she in there?
Right here.
No, I guess this would help. Ah, there's you. And then we've got two items of new business that should be a quick vote. What I'd like to do, committee members, is if we make a motion to take the two items of new business first and leave what time we've got left for the library. And on that topic, I'd like to follow your lead. I'd like to use today, and public safety is supposed to start in 7 minutes, so that's not happening. I'd like to use the remnant of today and whatever we need on next week to get to the questions we were catching up with last week, and I would anticipate a vote next week. I am anticipating that we can get these questions on the table, get them answered, and by next week be in a position to vote. Is that, y'all okay with that?
Yes, sir, sure.
Okay, if we could get a motion to change the order up right quick, we'll get them knocked out.
Second?
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the order is changed. Item new business number 1, Ms. Standridge, FY '23 general budget revision number 9.
Yes, good afternoon, council. This item is a twofold budget revision for our general fund. The first item underneath is going to be a grant agreement that we have been awarded through ALEA, that is going to be $10,000 for the internet crimes against children, and then it will replace some salary dollars in our TPD's budget. So it is, this budget revision is requesting an inflow of revenue from ALEA and then an outflow of salary dollars within TPD's budget. The second line within this general fund budget revision is going to be also for TPD, for them to use some of their training tech dollars that were set aside through municipal court diversion, to be able to use those for purchasing of fingerprint equipment.
What's the amount of that?
That one is $45,227.
Okay, someone have any questions?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. FY '23 budget revision number 9 is approved. Next item, funding for police take-home vehicle program. Mayor Maddox and Ms. Standridge.
I know last week you were presented the plan with the Administrative and Policy Committee for us to move forward with the purchase of 40 patrol cars, which will allow us probably this time next year or within 18 months to be able to have every patrol officer to have a take-home vehicle. To do this is an estimated $3 million expenditure, which actually for that includes what we would have to do in fiscal '24. So to do the additional to keep pace, we'd have to begin in '25 with the $1.5 million investment of police vehicles. We believe that the best source of revenues to go ahead and move this forward, and the reason why we would like to move this forward is procurement of these cars are taking over a year at this point. I think we're waiting on
34 now.
34 cars right now that we ordered last year. So if we can move forward now, we can expedite this. We think it's a key for us to get into recruiting and retaining our police officers. And so to do this, we have $4.3 million available from a reimbursement from Project NASCAR. That was a fund that we began in 2017 when we took over the management of McWright's Ferry Road and MLK Jack Warner Parkway. Thanks to the good work of A&F and really Ms. Standridge's leadership and the chef's leadership and our entire team, this surplus is now available to draw down from. And so we were hoping to wait and make this part of the April 18th, but again, knowing that time is really of the essence, we wanted to go ahead and move this forward. Ms. Standridge has forgotten more about this than I actually know. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to her and let her explain the funding mechanics of it. So, Carla?
Thank you. What you have in front of you is again, trying to do the simplified version of a spreadsheet. What you have in front of you is going to be the basically final accounting of the NASCAR fund. We set up the fund in 2015, I believe, to kind of start the process with all of our TCRIC managed projects. That was interchange on McFarland Boulevard, that was MLK Jack Warner Parkway, and then McWright's Ferry Road. So basically this fund fronted all of the costs of those projects, and then when we got reimbursed from TCRIC, we then kind of repaid ourselves back. In order to front some of that money, we then seeded that fund with certain payments, and you'll see those listed in that detail right in the middle of the page. So that totals to about $4.35 million of seed money that we put into this fund way back in previous years. Now that we have issued the McWright's Ferry Road bond amount, we have reimbursed ourselves fully for all those pre-costs, and so we are ready to close out this fund. That $4.3 million of seed money is basically available for movement. It just so happens that these two times coincide with the proposal of the take-home vehicle program. So we're proposing to use $3 million of that 4.35 to create a line item to purchase the 40 vehicles for TPD.
And Carly, there are no indentures in the B warrants or the A warrants that would prevent it from being redirected and spent on this?
No, sir. The bond warrants were satisfied with the original issuance, with the original usage on the McWright's Ferry Road or MLK Jack Warner Parkway project.
Are there other questions?
I don't have any.
Chief, I have a question that I brought up last week, and I'm hoping we have the answer this week. That was, I wanted to know, with the 34 cars coming in, the other 40, was it, that we're buying, and the attrition falling off the back end, what does our steady state fleet size need to look like?
We need to have 289 cars plus an extra 15 for spares for any wrecked cars or anything like that. So we need about 320 cars.
So after getting in what's on order, buying what we're about to vote on funding, and then clearing out at the bottom end of the ladder that which is aged out.
Yeah, 15 will be gone next year.
289 plus 15 is what the steady state fleet should look like?
Yes, sir, around that number now. This is hoping to get us up to full staff. We are not there yet. But the influx of vehicles coming in of 16 a year will actually strengthen our fleet. They're going to last longer. We're predicting that car will last from 7 to 8 years. So that should get us to that number, and we should hold steady at that number. The big thing is, if the car's wrecked, we have to replace with insurance money and that kind of stuff. But the 40 cars come in and will get us to a steady fleet of still having line cars in case cars go down or they're wrecked, and also be able to grab one of those cars. It'll have to stay at headquarters. Those cars can be rotated until their car can get fixed or the car is purchased.
You're talking about cars for vacant positions?
Yes, sir. Car.
Yes, sir.
I don't think I've ever asked this question or heard the answer. What I'm fixing to ask is, when we order vehicles, I'm assuming we do that under the state, like, under the state, whatever.
The bid
negotiated
requirements.
Bid requirements.
Yes, sir.
But do we put an order in and we have to pay, or do we pay, you just put that in there and then you pay when you receive them, I'm assuming, right?
We pay when we
Pay upon
receive
delivery.
them. Yes, sir. Pay on delivery. We issue
You pay a deposit?
We issue a requisition, and so that requisition is basically like a contract between the city and the seller.
The dealer or whoever.
Correct.
Is that money escrowed somewhere until we have to pay?
That's what these budget dollars will do, is it will set aside all of
Put
that
that
funding.
somewhere.
Any other questions?
Motion approved.
Second?
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved. Okay, Ms. Pearson, welcome back. So, thank you for coming, and again, like your first appearance, we're already out of time, but we're gonna encroach somewhat into public safety's time.
short.
Do what we can, and then anything we need to clean up, we'll come
Okay.
back next week.
All right.
So, let me take a whack at recapping,
Okay.
all right? I think the ask that's on the table is roughly 2 million coming up in the spring that we would put in our capital budget, for the roof repair. And then some.
Probably a little less.
A little less, okay, and then somewhere around 330,000 to augment the funding of the, is it Bolden Weaver or Weaver Bolden?
Weaver Bolden,
Weaver Bolden, branch out there. Is that,
Yes,
are we on the same sheet of music?
you were dead on.
All right, so I think what we heard last week, you know, we got to look at several sheets and we had, Brian had showed us the escalation, or actually the absence of escalation from year to year, going up from like 2005.
13, 14.
Both, I think both for the main library and for the Bolden branch, and then, you know, there was an inflation factored into that, and the, down at the bottom of all that is, it's not enough money. So, in that sense, you don't sound that much different from any other
I
agency that
know,
we fund.
I know.
And we went back and did the background, because that commitment on the Weaver Bolden branch, again, preceded I think all of us except Kip, that we verified that. So of the things that we want to talk about today are, number one, as we saw that schedule of funding from over the years, we did not see the corresponding schedule, I'll call it schedule of utilization, that shows, okay, are we generating 1 million visits in this branch, or 5, or, so we want to look at that today.
Yes,
And then I think after we've looked at that, we want to, one of the wrinkles in this has been that you know, last week the presentation was, yeah, y'all have committed to paying for this branch operation, and you've been paying the tab we sent to you, but when we re-examine it, that tab's wrong. We have underestimated. Are we still saying, because I'm about to shut up
no,
and,
yeah,
and
you're
let
right.
you talk.
You were right, yes.
So why don't you pick us up there
Okay,
and try to walk us through at least those two parts that are kind of looming out there. What does the usage of the Weaver Bolden branch look like in comparison to that funding? And then what factors went into the miscalculation of that previous price tag, and B, the recalculation of the current one? There, I'm shutting
okay.
up.
So I'm gonna jump forward just a little bit in my
Okay.
presentation, because I want y'all to see all of the services that we do offer at the Weaver Library before we talk about everything, and these pictures as well. Oh, maybe they're not in there. Okay, so those didn't make it in, that's fine. Okay. We have a whole sheet of services that we offer at Weaver Bolden. So, and I really wanted you to see that beforehand, just so that you know sort of what we're talking about and what they offer. But I'll go ahead and jump forward with the stats. We did pull stats prior to COVID, just so that you're aware. And I will show some graphs going forward, because numbers are down, and across the country, numbers are down in public libraries in general because of COVID. So I just want you to be aware of that. But in this chart right here, it lists the Weaver door count and items circulated as compared to the main library door count and items circulated. And then at the bottom, you can see where we worked out the percentage of total circulation there. So it is low. And when I talk about the Weaver Library, and I have Marty Ball here, who has been the library or the branch manager over there for the last 10 years, this branch serves a completely different purpose in this community. And so that's why I wanted you to see the program list. And I'll probably have it in here, and I can send it later. But this is the reality of the door count and the items circulated.
Okay, thank you. That's, flip it back for a second.
Okay?
Thank you. This is getting to what I wanted to understand. Ladies, do y'all want to, if you would like to cross the field of vision, go ahead and take a seat. So kind of pre-COVID, we were just in the double digits and the usage, whether you measure that by doors swinging back and forth in circulation, and they look to track pretty closely to each other.
Right, right.
The usage was double digit, COVID hit, and it's down around 7% right now, is that?
And you can, I mean, it's up a little bit, but you also need to take into consideration that they are closed 2 days a week currently.
Right. Why were they closed yesterday? I went out there. And it's supposed
We had
to
a
be open.
transformer sitting in a puddle of oil, and we had to have it changed out immediately. So, and that kills internet service and CERT service at the branches when the main library goes down, so we apologize
All
for
right,
that.
so, good. This is putting for us into perspective
Yes,
what portion of the total library operation accounts for, but then you're also, I hear you trying to tell us, but it does special things out there.
Sure.
Go ahead with
Yes.
that.
so, going forward, this is just it graphed out, so you can see, and this is compared to Maine, the door count and items circulated. Because of the difference in the numbers, there is a slow trend up, but it's not as obvious in here when compared to Maine. But those are those same numbers charted out.
I'm sorry, say the what?
These are the numbers here, these are those numbers, they're charted out, just a visual so you can see how they're trending. In this slide, we've compared them now with the Brown branch, which is the branch down 69 South. And again, you'll see the trend here is very comparable to the two branches. So
And it's the Brown branch, I have to ask some historical, is it to the county
It is.
what Weaver Bolden
exactly.
is to the city?
Yes,
It's
sir.
a special enclave.
Mhm.
They've insisted and offered to fund?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly, yes. Okay, so, this is, to me, is a little more telling, so you can see Weaver compared to Weaver. And you can see the green is the hours that it's open, and you can see, obviously, during COVID, we were closed. And you do see where it is trending back up here in this slide. So I do think that
Weaver
that's,
hours open. Y'all are open about 22 hours a week,
no, 24, right now.
24?
Currently.
And-
Right now.
And the main library's open about 44 a week?
Roughly, maybe a
Okay.
little closer to 50. Okay. And then here is the same information charted out for the main library, just as a comparison. And then we have it for Brown as well. Okay.
Gentlemen, y'all-
This you cannot see up close, and I do have, this is where we have listed in here the ask, and I can send this if y'all
Yeah,
don't have
listed
it
the what?
already. This is the, sort of the comparison of the budget in here, and what was requested, and then what was received, and where those shortfalls are, by line item in our budget. And then at the bottom is the total deficit, which is 321,000. From what was funded last year.
The total delta that you're seeking is the 321?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And that would be for what period, Jennifer?
It would actually be for a calendar year. So this was our budget for 21-22, and that would be the difference in that budget year.
21-22 fiscal year?
Right, we did it based on that, just because obviously we don't have a full year to run for this.
So the 321 you're seeking would cover what, from March through the end of December 23?
October.
Yeah, it would actually be October
She said
through,
calendar year, she said fiscal.
Well, I'm just seeing.
well, the
see
rest
what-
of this fiscal year.
Okay.
So going forward, because I think that's what was discussed at one particular time. What would be the sustainability of need that you would
So
be
the
asking?
total is 655,000 a year, and that is at level funding. That is not at adding any services whatsoever at this point. So there was an update to this entire presentation where I listed out the executive or the admin positions that are accounted for in this budget, the administrative cost, and then the,
Do we have,
Copies of that, I guess.
do you have that?
I don't
do
have-
we have that Before you
updated
leave today,
presentation.
can
This
we
is the
each
first
have
one.
a paper copy of this? Because I can't read it. Go ahead, Ms. Pierce.
Okay, it's, but there are a total of, let's see, 4 full-time positions and 2 part-time positions at the Weaver Bolden Library, for a total of 5 FTEs.
You said how many full-time?
4
So-
full-time, 2 part-time.
Yes,
And so full-time, I mean, if the library is open 24 hours a week, what
2 of those.
is
Yeah,
full-time?
so 2 of those positions, it's 40 hours a week.
40 hours a week,
Right.
where do they go?
So 2 of those positions are vacant right now. When we did our cuts back in October and November, we did not refill those positions at that time because we knew we would be cutting hours.
Councilman Busby, I think the thing here is right now, okay, where we are, we're not open full-time.
Right.
If we wanna open full-time, we've gotta add those hours, those people back in.
And
That's
is that the goal? Was that the
Right.
condition
I'm trying to figure.
before? And
Yes.
is it the goal going
Yes.
forward?
Yes.
Right.
All right, so the goal is not to be open 24 hours a week.
That's right.
But 40-ish, 42, 44, 40, right?
Right. That's
Okay.
correct.
And in that scenario, it would require 4 FTEs at 40 hours a week and 2 part-time.
Okay.
This is a little telling. I'd like you to look at this. Now, one of the things, if you look at it and you do your checkouts per your population in District 1 and District 2,
Uh-huh.
it is much closer. You get at least 1 circulation, 2 circs a year, and that's their items checked out, sorry, for your population in those areas. But this is a breakdown. If you look at the population, what those funding levels would be like. And I factored in Districts 1 and 2 as another scenario just because of their proximity to each other. I feel that it serves both of those districts pretty equally.
Any, Norman, Matthew, any questions on that? I'm not,
Okay, so,
walk me.
okay,
through.
sure. Okay, so what
So
we
up top,
received,
we're looking at, there's 100,000 people in Tuscaloosa,
that's right,
and we kick in $1.4 million, yeah?
right,
So
Yes.
that's $14 and a dime
right. And if you,
per head.
that's right.
Now we start
If you
taking out,
District 1 and then
and the
subtract
per head
District
number
2,
goes up.
that's right.
Okay, then we drop down to just District 1. See,
So funded at the current rate,
current level is the 367. There's
yes,
14,000 people in District 1, so that's $26 a head.
and then funded at the asking, at the full would bring it up to 46.49. Or if you factor in District 2, it would be 23.19.
But wouldn't we draw from that District 1 is being funded at nearly double what the city as a whole is
3
per
times,
Right.
capita?
3 times.
District
He's
1 is
referring,
being funded at $26.
that's at the current
right
rate.
now.
At the
That's
current
at the current
rate.
Right now.
Yes, sir.
We're spending $26 for every head in District 1,
Yes,
which is nearly double
yes,
the
sir,
per capita amount we're spending on the city as a whole.
yes.
Interesting.
But if we meet your ask, then we're now funding every head in District 1 at 4. Whatever 46 divided by 14 is. 3 and
3.2.
How much?
okay, so now you take that down to District 1 and 2, and is that because you figure District 1 and 2 essentially comprise the user base?
Right,
For
because of
Weaver Bolden?
where Weaver is located, it's right on the line there on MLK, so,
Okay, so I think I'm like, why are you trying to show us we're already
Yeah.
spending 4 times as much? So if we bring this down to 1 and 2, that's where we start to see the leveling out?
yes, sir.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So, Okay.
Okay, so this is the slide that did not make it in. Well, these are pictures of programs at the Weaver Bolden Library. And then this is a list of services that we offer at Weaver, and you can see it's a pretty full page. You can see there in the pictures the amount of attendance, and this is all pre-COVID, just so that you're aware. But it is a very well-used branch.
It is. It really is.
I think the point, Mr. Busby, is that you're not just paying for bricks and mortar at the Weaver Brown branch, but the people who are there to run the programs that make this a very vibrant library for the community it serves, especially for the children. And that's why the costs are more per se, because of the programs that are offered there. It's not just a brick and mortar building.
I understand. And back up one slide.
Sure.
So, but one of the, so in this illustration, this assumes that people in District 1 and 2 are not making any utilization of the main library, right?
Right.
This is
That's right.
calculated assuming that they're only
That's
using the
right.
Weaver Bolden grant. All right.
Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Crowe, Mr. Wilson, any other questions?
Yeah, I have several.
A couple and by the way, you're doing great. We have
I'll
ignored
make
the
it look, I
clock.
can make it.
You're doing,
Quick
it's
work.
common sense and it's right
Yes.
on track, and I appreciate it. I do want to get to how you calculate that cost, but Mr. Crowe, do y'all want to
Can I-
get in here?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Jennifer, just a
Yes.
couple of observations I've been thinking about for the last
Yes.
couple of weeks. To me, we've got a short-term issue and a long-term issue, like we've talked about, okay? Short-term issue is roughly $2 million-ish to make up for the past shortfall for what we've already done at Weaver Bolden. What will that number be? A
No,
little over
that's
2
just the
million?
three, well, that's just the 13-1. The 2 million comes in for the roof of
For the, what I'm saying,
the main
short term,
library.
I'm saying between now and budget time.
Oh.
What
no,
I'm saying, we
no.
get short
I mean,
term, we gotta help y'all with the roof, and we wanna help with the funding
Right.
to keep you whole.
No, it would just be, well, and we could, go down on the 321 number. One of the things we have not factored into this budget, because it wasn't part of 21-22, was security. So if we're gonna be open after hours, we do typically have an
Do that.
off-duty policeman there.
But right now, the short term issue is how much is the portion of the roof that y'all are asking for?
Okay, this is, so we just got these numbers yesterday afternoon. This is, from Ellis Architects, and the breakdown, I did the mayor's breakout of the 44-14-42. The new cost is 2.5 million, and that will, cover the roof and the equipment on the exterior of the building. There is, it sits directly on what would be the new roof.
In order to get the roof, and it's not just a cover on the roof, it's a completely new roof. So the new roof will be completely insulated. I just got off the phone last night, myself and Eric. And in order to get that roof warranted like we would want it, we would have to do substantial work with the pieces of HVAC equipment that are on the roof in order in terms of lifting them up to put the roof under and reapplying. Given the cost of getting the crane there anyway, and picking these things up and having to rework the bases on them, and the fact that the engineer, the mechanical engineer is saying with the new HVAC equipment that he would propose to use, it's gonna save somewhere between 30 and 40% of our electricity bill. Now, I think our electricity bill, and we're gonna get him the numbers to give us the actual savings on it. This is moving on the fly here, but currently our electricity bill on the main branch is about $12,000 a month, $140,000 a year. So if you're looking at 30 to 40%, that's a significant savings on that. So it would seem that
Is that in those numbers, that what you're just saying, is that 1 point, is that in that $2.5 million
that's
that
Yes.
you're talking about?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So basically what we're looking at is 1.5 to 1.7 to get the roof and the pipes and all the other stuff fixed. If we go ahead and spend a little more now, which we're gonna have to do in the near future, we're gonna have to do within the next 10 years, we might as well get it done now and start saving the money for it. The other interesting point on this is that apparently the chillers, which is how they did it in the old days, they are not favored anymore because they are so regulated that they really can't service them anymore, provide the service parts. And for a building our size, it's not quite big enough to get the chiller that makes the cost of maintaining it equal to the savings of maintaining the heat pump, newfangled gadgets.
How soon, the goal, that Standards and I will be presenting on April 18th, our capital recommendation. Our hope has been to include a capital amount for TPL. When do you need these dollars by?
The original plan was to get bids out this week, but we got this email yesterday about this, so Lance and I talked to Eric Ellis about this, and we're gonna circle back with him tomorrow about getting bids out maybe a week from now.
Do you think you can have those commitments from Northport and the county for those amounts? Because I'm sure we would require a commitment from all of our partners. We would kind of like the police vehicles, we would have to come back to Mr. Busby's committee and accelerate a recommendation to do this.
Yeah, and I understand, and that's, as soon as we get back and get a file number with Eric, one of the reasons why we talked to Eric today is because Judge Robertson said that he may have ARPA money that can pay for the HVAC thing. So not only will we get 30 to 40% savings on it, if there was some ARPA money on it, that would be wonderful.
Will y'all be going through federal procurement standards?
Yes.
They're already doing that.
Okay, yeah,
They're already
Yes.
doing that.
okay.
$2.5 million. Does that cover everything that Brian's talking about?
Yes.
Okay. So, again, I wanna go back to what I'm getting in my head, I wanna know.
Sure.
Okay?
1.45 million.
Short-term and long-term. Short-term
That's short.
is
Yes.
1.1 plus the difference, or to keep the Bolden Library whole, which is how much money?
That is a total each year, it's $655,000.
Right, but what we were talking about was making up the difference.
That's
321.
Okay,
321,
so,
yes.
okay, so just my math, that's
Yes.
$1.421 million that the city would be requested of in the next
Right, yes.
little bit, that y'all would need that money to be able to do this.
That's right.
Okay,
Yes.
so, let me write that down. 1.421 million. Now, long-term, I would assume that the recommendation that would come to the mayor's office, that will come to us, is some, I mean, I still think, I wanna see y'all say, this is where I think the number was 24. I can't remember what
Yes,
number,
right,
okay, the
right,
number was
right,
24.
right.
So I'm assuming that when we do the budget presentations, and hopefully way before that, y'all are giving Walton them information to bring to us.
Yes.
That we talked about doing a 3-year phase-in, or 3 or 4 year, whatever that difference, I can't remember
Right.
the money.
Right.
But I would expect that when we do this next budget, there will be a presentation that says, this is our ask, this is what we want to see to fund at the library, these are the things that we think are important. We think we need to be going 40 hours at the Bolden branch. We think we need these programs, blah, 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 whatever that is, and we're gonna have a 3 or 4 year window to
We've
say,
actually worked it out to a 5-year to get us to 25 or 26.
that's perfect. So that would go to the administration, and the administration will review that, and then I would assume they'll bring that to us, which, phasing that in, looking at our funding right now,
Right.
again, we're given, what is it we're giving y'all, I'm sorry, 1 point,
So it's,
is it 1.4?
yes.
Well, okay, so
Back in-
roughly, are we talking about, and that doesn't count keeping the Bolden branch whole either.
No,
No,
So if those numbers, if we didn't change anything, but you added, you didn't change anything, you didn't add any staff, didn't do anything, I'm saying probably we're 300 and, whatever we said, 321,000 is 1.75, let's say. If we didn't do anything, we just froze, we say we were gonna do that. So if that's our starting point, what is a realistic ramp up, do you think? Is it
Well,
$300,000 more? I don't know, I'm just wondering what
What we've
we're
looked
talking
at,
about.
what we've looked at with the consultants and the executive committee and the board has looked at is looking at where we are and where we would like to get so that we could be half of the national, half of the statewide average, basically.
Which is the number we talked about, right?
25,
Yes, that's the
26
Yeah, okay, 20, okay.
per capita, but it's not just the city.
No,
We've got some work to do with the county, we've got some work to do with Northport. And as a city resident, I certainly wouldn't expect my tax dollars to pay for somebody else's library services.
Right.
And so I think what our idea was to do that over 5 to 6 years, and as we we grow into those things we want to do over time. And lay those out for you.
What is real, I mean, again, if we, because I don't, I mean, again, I always say I'm one vote, but I can't imagine that we would not support right now where we are going forward. So if we're saying that baseline is 1.75 million, to keep everything even, right? What are we talking about? Are we talking about $250,000 a year? What's the
Well,
final number,
basically,
2.1?
Basically, it's $2 a year, if you go up over 5 years, and you're trying to get from $19 a head to 25 or 26, that's $6 or $7. So it's $1.50 and $2 a year.
per.
So it's
per capita.
$300,000 a year, right? Yeah,
Per capita.
so 250, so we'd probably say 2 million, I'm just throwing that number out,
Right.
roughly.
If we could get to 5.2 global funding and add a little bit of state funding, we get over that. That could give us a library that I think would get us back to where we are on par and where we want to go, being a library of the 21st century.
Do you
Some of the
guys,
other
do
funding
you
partners
guys
stepping
feel
up.
that the county and Northport are gonna be open to getting on the board with us, the train to go
I sure do hope so.
that direction?
I sure do hope so, but I learned one thing in being involved in governments a long time, don't predict them. One time you may be up like Wolf Blitzer early in the morning and say, oh my God, Western Florida's gonna vote for, y'all remember that.
Okay,
Um,
and we're getting
But that-
close.
But anyway, but that's kind of, I think this has been very enlightening. I appreciate you guys being here because I think moving forward, as the ask comes to us, I hope we're gonna say, these are the things we think are important. This is what we think we need to fund, and then get toward the goal we need to get to over the next several years.
So we appreciate your thinking about that, because
Yes.
that's the hope of all of us.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
any more questions before we finally allow public safety to get to there? Ms. Jennifer, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have enjoyed it. I'm gonna take this home and get my magnifying
I'm so,
glass
I will send it to
tonight,
you.
and
I will
I'm
send
gonna
you the
try to
spreadsheet.
understand, this is the expense structure
Yes.
that you've applied to Weaver Bolden.
That's
right?
correct, yes,
Okay.
sir.
And we'll have you back, Mayor, you think y'all will fine tune the recommendation bring it back next week? 'Cause I think we're,
I think the capital part will be easier because I think, and I haven't,
well, if we
I
wanna
haven't
do,
talked to
if
Ms.
we wanna do it in 2 parts, that's fine.
I haven't talked to Ms. Standridge about this, but probably just go ahead and use the last remaining portion of the McRice Ferry Road, for the library.
I wanna support this walk.
I know. But it goes to,
So-
goes to the roof, and then the bigger challenge for us on the operating will be, we'll have to make some budget, we'll have to make some operating budget amendments.
I agree with you, the capital piece is gonna be easier than the
Easy,
operating piece.
Absolutely.
And Jennifer, what I mean.
And we have some various scenarios, if you would like us to bring that, I mean, as far
I
as.
very well might, because I think either next week or the week after, we'd like to bring you and Brian back in and hopefully put a bow on this thing and move it
Okay.
forward. I want you to come back though prepared to answer this. As I look at those numbers you've got up there, you've got a little over $1 million for main library funding, and you're trying to get to 655 on the Weaver Bolden branch. That shakes out to 32% of your funding is providing usage for 7% of your youth. When you come back, I wanna understand why that is the executive director's recommendation.
Don't say that.
Let's talk about that, 'cause I mean, I
We,
think.
we can talk about it, but we can't talk about it now. 'cause
I understand. The only thing, Mr. Busby, I think that I want everybody to think about as we go is, the concept was that Weaver Bolden, from the beginning, was supposed to be fully funded,
Correct.
okay? If we can't fully fund it, even if it is 32% of the overall budget, for only 7% of the use, okay? That's a decision that you all have to make.
We do.
And
But listening to the recommendation from here, from the standpoint of running a library,
I
here's
would
what I
not-
think is the way to run it. You give me the money. We'll do the money part.
Well, I think what I'm saying to you, Mr. Busby, and to the members of the council, is that you have to decide what you want at the Weaver Bolden Library. Because if you want what has been typically done at the Weaver Bolden Library, then the money needs to be increased. You have to make the decision whether you want that or not.
How about this? I recognize the political side of that issue as well as the operations.
Let y'all two talk.
No, we're done. 'Cause I've got to give Mr. Fail his public safety meeting.
As important as some of this stuff is, I
Huh?
hope that
Oh, I
that we
don't
can
know.
get more, if we get more kids involved in this, it's gonna
Oh,
really probably make a big difference.
Right.
Oh,
And I don't know how you do that. Maybe,
It is a tough right now with the national trends
Yeah.
and the people not coming back. Specifically at the Weaver Library, they are definitely coming back to the main library. I don't know if I would say this is a recommendation. This
It's
is
not,
y'all's.
you don't have to do
No.
that. I'll-
This is for y'all to decide. It is hard for me as the director to look at those numbers and not do services at the main library where we have a much higher attendance. But I do feel the Weaver Library serves a very specific purpose in our
And-
community,
and
and
from
it's
my-
very important.
And from my understanding, that at one point in time, there was a lot of traffic going in and out of that library.
There was at least double what was
Yes.
there, yes, now,
And so we want to get it
Get that
back to,
back.
we want to get it back.
Yes.
We want to support it.
yes.
Okay?
Again, thank you for coming in.
No, you're.
I
welcome.
appreciate the level that we're able to talk at, and I learned a lot. So, any other items?
Mr. Busby,
Yes.
will we get a motion to table?
so moved.
Second?
Oh, yeah. And
And do you
Ron,
want this for next week or the week after?
What did we say? I think we
I-
said,
2 weeks.
Carl,
we said 2 weeks.
Carly, y'all want 2
It'll have to be
weeks?
the 21st.
It'll be the 21st, that'll be 3
Yeah.
weeks.
We're not here on the 14th
Right.
Okay, table for 3 weeks,
to the 21st.
the
Yeah.
21st.
With the
Yes,
funding,
sir.
you want funding proposal.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, as we've been hearing all this, I'm expecting that the staff will be refining its recommendation, just like it would for the mayor and staff, like it would for any part of the budget.
About one and a half
Like the
million.
mayor mentioned, we have the capital presentations on April 18th, that we were thinking this would kind of be.
We can separate these two, Mayor.
Say you need.
Whatever.
Yeah, I think let's separate the two, and then if you can give us a determination on what you want to fund on the operating side. The other thing, I'm sure you have this data, I'm just curious, are there certain days and hours of the week that it's open and this use is heavy, and there's other days and
Yes,
hours where
and
it's
that's
not?
part of what I would, as an option, I would
I mean,
like to share.
I mean, we don't wanna waste, no one wants to waste any resources,
Right.
and so if we can invest in the hours where we know that it's really serving the community at
Yes.
a high level, that may be something that the council would wanna hear as well, I know I would.
Absolutely. No, we can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Now, did you second it?
You
I thought you were
second.
making a
Yeah,
motion to
Yes.
adjourn.
Second.
Second it.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.